Right, welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Been pretty good, Jamie. Just enjoying some nice hot coffee during this snowstorm we got going up here. How about you?
Trying to enjoy gaming. It's really cold here as well, but I'm getting on with it. And yeah, this past week there's been a lot of different gaming stories, and thankfully most of them aren't Activision related. We do have some of that, but I think we're getting to
Thanks
a
the maker. Yeah.
yeah, we're getting to a point now where look, everyone's sick of it. But fortunately, there's way more gaming topics that's I'd say more headline focused and stuff. But it's exciting because the year's getting on, and I don't know, we're starting to get some new releases soon. But yeah, there's been a few games released recently, and one of them I want to talk about. I didn't really originally have it listed is Risen. It was a 360 RPG. It was like mid-generation, made by THQ. You can actually buy it backwards compatible at the minute for like £3.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, and I've always heard some like mixed things about it. Like it's really cool, it's really bad, but honestly, when it comes to an RPG from that era, I'm always willing to go back. And well, it got remastered, and THQ Nordic didn't even advertise it, which kind of blows my mind a bit. But yeah, it just came out today in the UK as of now. You still can't find it on the store unless you directly search for it. And it's labeled as an Xbox One game with 60 FPS and 4K. So I don't know what that's about. Maybe Digital Foundry will have to do some testing or whatever. But basically, it's I think it's £24. It's 4K 60, and honestly, it looks pretty decent. So if you like Xbox 360 era RPGs, the remaster's out. It's also out on Switch and PlayStation. But yeah, it's pretty cool to have these older games come back while still having access to the backwards compatible version. Like, Logan, would you say it's worth picking up?
Yeah, I'd pick it up. I actually had no idea they were remastering the first one. I knew they were doing Gothic, but I didn't know they were doing Risen. But I'll definitely check it out. Like you said, no marketing. Shout out to Square, our favorite marketers. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll check it out.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, it's not even labeled as a remaster. It's just labeled as a port. Um, so basically, I think it's Xbox One X enhanced, 4K. During the One X enhancement stuff, we did have a lot of games with different modes. So DMC, Devil May Cry 5, that had multiple different modes, and this is just another one of those games. Kingdoms of Amalur, that's 4K 60 on One X, and that just transferred over to Series X. But basically, you're just going to be getting a 4K 60 experience. There's also a performance mode, which is also 60, so nobody can tell just yet. So if anyone has a 120 hertz television or monitor, test it out. Who knows, it might go up there. But yeah, THQ Nordic, like, they have some really sporadic releases and they don't advertise the games, which always blows my mind. But anyway, I watched the trailer. Again, it looks like a 360 RPG, which I'm down for. I'm probably going to pick it up soon, but we have some releases coming soon. And actually, so Power Wash Simulator came to Xbox last year, and it was it's in Game Pass, and it's getting free DLC. And yes, you do clean buildings and objects in this game, but in this update, for free, you get to clean Croft Manor from the Tomb Raider games. Now, granted, a game where you clean stuff doesn't sound like the most entertaining thing in the world, but I think it sits in that category of games where it's actually pretty relaxing. And you can just sit back, turn your brain off, and play it. And I love it when games do these crossovers. And a lot of the time it's free DLC. So, Final Fantasy 15 also had Assassin's Creed stuff. Assassin's Creed had some Final Fantasy stuff. But yeah, Logan, what's your thought about the Power Wash Simulator getting free Tomb Raider DLC?
I'm actually super hyped about it. Like, and it was Power Wash was actually in my top 10 games of the year or last year. It just something about it. Like when I first heard about it, I was like, why would I play this game? Like, what is entertaining about this? But then I tried it on a whim on Game Pass, and I got hooked. I bought it, and it has become my default just chill wind down game. Like I'll play some other stuff, but then like when I want to just listen to a podcast or listen to music or just kind of relax before bed, I put on Power Wash Simulator, and I've gone through all the missions just countless times. So I was very hungry for more content. Having Croft Manor as a crossover is super cool because I love Tomb Raider. I know you do as well. And apparently, it's going to have 5 story missions throughout the Croft Manor and wings and sections and stuff. And then later on, there's going to be some more cosmetics that come to the game, and there's going to be at least 2 more levels that were community voted. There's going to be an aquarium and a submarine are going to be added to the game this year, and then potentially some more stuff. But yeah, like I recommend it. Check it out. Just give the game a chance, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it sits in that category of games where you can just, relax to it. One of them, which I play a lot, which is a Hard Space Shipbreaker. I've put over 150 hours into that game. I've got footage going on in the podcast, and like, I can't put it down. And you just tear apart spaceships, and I like that category of games. Very soothing, just chill. You can listen to music or podcasts, like you were saying. But yeah, download Power Wash Simulator. I think the DLC arrives on the 27th. But yeah, completely free, all that stuff. And let's get into some meaty stuff straight away. Ubisoft, one of my used to be favorite publishers. I have a lot of their games. Like during the 360 generation, I bought probably every single game they came out with. Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry. The list goes on. Even like the one-off games, 2-off games like Hawks and all that stuff. Well, they've been in some trouble recently. Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, came out and said they're going to concentrate on live service games and basically titles that have big brand names. So that made everyone pretty much roll their eyes. Made my eyes roll because that's the last thing Ubisoft needs. And basically, in his statement, he basically put it on to the workforce, all the developers, because they have like 20,000 developers, insane number of developers. And thankfully, the developers revolted. They voiced their opinions on the situation, and he had to apologize, which is a win for us because in the end, I think Ubisoft have the potential to be the best third-party publisher, like they were in the end of the 360 generation. Like, look at back at the end of the 360, they were coming out with, great Assassin's Creed games every year, interesting Ghost Recon games. Far Cry 3 rejuvenated the franchise, and it was a massive seller. They were coming out with weird one-off titles, like there was an RTS game where you used your voice to control squads and all that stuff. And
Ruse.
Yeah, that was it, Ruse. And like things like Splinter Cell on the 360, I love Conviction and Blacklist. And they have the potential to be like that again. But like focusing on live service elements, like nobody really wants to do that. And like I will say this, I'm hyped about Assassin's Creed Mirage because that's single player. They've confirmed there's no microtransactions or any of that stuff. It's purely single player. It's going to take place in, cities. It's obviously going to have, some outside stuff, but like it's a traditional Assassin's Creed game, but with modern combat. And that's like a really happy medium. And I think that will sell well. Like in the UK, it's going for about, I think it's £45, which to me, for a smaller Assassin's Creed game in the old style, is perfect. But I honestly think if that sells really well, they'll actually like take a look at the franchise and maybe like deviate a bit. They'll still do the action RPGs, but they'll also do smaller games. Because I think, like, we look at Ubisoft and think, oh, every game they make is formulaic. It's an action RPG. Everything is an action RPG now. Ghost Recon, action RPG. Far Cry, action RPG. And, Splinter Cell, if that turns into an action RPG, I'll cry. But, like, I think that'll probably show them, like, that there's money in single-player games. Just like what Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order did for EA. Like, that game came out the gate swinging and literally scared executives at EA because they've been missing money out for years for not releasing single player content. And in the end, gamers win. You know, like Logan, you like Ubisoft titles, right? Like, what's your thought on the whole, like, them clearly wanting to do live service games, but in the end, going the EA route will clearly do them some good?
Yeah, I'm frankly kind of burned out on games as a service, live service titles. There are a few that I really enjoy, but I just feel like it's become way too mainstream of a, not to sound hipstery, which is not what I'm going for, but I feel like it's become too centralized and focused of a genre to where it's like they're trying to pigeonhole all these franchises into this live service games as a service type format. And some franchises, frankly, are just not built for that or meant for that or will thrive as that. And to me, the formulaic cookie cutter approach they've been doing it needs to stop. Hopefully, this new Assassin's Creed title that's scaled back will hit the sweet spot, and people will swarm to it. It'll have great numbers, great reviews. People will love it, and UB will understand that hey, diversity is the secret to quality life here, and they will diversify their portfolio, maybe have some more creative risks and smaller titles again, and get back to being strong Ubisoft. A 20,000 employee, cap is insane. I mean, that's like basically twice Activision Blizzard if you think about it, which is nuts. So the fact that Ubisoft has all this manpower and all this talent, yet it's been squandering it, it's a colossal shame. And I really hope they turn the ship around.
Yeah, and like they've proven they can still make good titles. You see that potential in all their games. But like, bear in mind, I can't post any of these links. And for people that do post, leaks and screenshots of things, do not post what I'm about to say. You can find it on YouTube, but you can't post it. So, Assassin's Creed China is a AAA game set in the Assassin's Creed universe, obviously, but it's a mobile title. And there's tons of footage on YouTube at the minute. A lot. There's about a few hours worth. And it looks really good. They clearly using assets from previous Assassin's Creed games, but it's like, this is a single player game that's on mobile, and it looks really good. And as someone that doesn't like to play games on mobile, I'm kind of salty, but I'll probably fall for it anyway. But like, I will not hate on Ubisoft. I'm not one of those YouTube creators where I'm going to bash Ubisoft all day. Like, I love Ubisoft's games. I think they can make really good content, but like look at Dead Space, which we'll talk about in a bit. Like, they announced the game with a CGI trailer, and then from the moment it was announced, they told us up front what they were changing, what they were adding to the game. They even showed us early development footage, which you don't really see a lot. And everyone's impressions of that game is through the roof. Everyone loves what they've seen. And then you have Ubisoft with Splinter Cell, where we know nothing about the remake outside it's quote-unquote updated for modern audiences. And it's like, that could mean a myriad of different things, but like, sometimes it doesn't mean good stuff.
That's a trigger phrase for me nowadays. I've seen too many nightmare scenarios with that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, granted, that could just mean that the game's set in the modern year with modern tech, where, back when that game came out, people didn't have smartphones. So, Sam Fisher would probably have something like a smartphone now that could hack devices and all that stuff. Maybe that's what they meant. That's what I'm hoping. But, like, people want to know what it looks like. There's some really cool concept art out there. And I like concept art, but I'm a Splinter Cell fan that's been thirsty for years for a new Splinter Cell game, and they just haven't delivered. And then you look at Skull and Bones, right? Like, look at it like this. Assassin's Creed 4 was one of the best-selling games last generation, pretty much. And they came out the gate. It's a pirate game. It appealed to Assassin's Creed fans, and it appealed to gamers that never really experienced an open-world pirate game before. Sold like 14 million copies or something. It was cross-generation. I believe they even had it on like Wii U. It's also on Switch now and all that stuff. and all they had to do was make a sequel. Right? I'm not counting Rogue. I like Rogue, but that is literally a spin-off at a different time and all that stuff. But they just had to make Assassin's Creed Black Flag 2. That's all they had to do. And now we're getting this live service pirate battling game where you can't even swing onto other people's ships and battle on foot. It's just weird. And the only on foot stuff you can do is you can walk around the island and buy things. That is just, it's weird. Like, they fumbled the bag, or the ball or whatever. And it's like, could they have not just made the sequel? like, I guarantee all Assassin's Creed fans looking at Skull and Bones would buy a $70 or $60 sequel to Black Flag, not this Skull and Bones thing, because Skull and Bones being £70 and $70, I don't think it's gonna sell well at all. Like, Logan, what's your thought? Because like it's a lot of money to ask for a game we've seen delayed 6 times.
Yeah, it's a leap of faith price for me on that type of game. Like me, I we've debated and talked about the $70 versus $60. If you approve this change, then inevitably it's going to delete to this, and all these price things we've debated a lot. But me, $70 for a game that has been through development hell for like at least 6 delays and reboots and restructures, and been killed and resurrected and just all this stuff. And then the fact that it's multiplayer only, and you can't go onto other ships, swing around, only, marketplace, and then ship to ship combat. The fact that it feels like a mode for an Assassin's Creed game that they just cut and paste and made its own game, and they jacked the price up, and all that combined, it seems like this thing is gonna sink. But I mean, I hope it thrives, because I'm all for new franchises having success and people finding new things they enjoy. But I gotta tell you, I just don't feel great vibes about Skull and Bones to me.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the deal they've made with, I can't remember if it was the South Korean government or something. Like, there's a government basically that's helped fund the game, and they have to release it no matter what. And I just don't know, like how do you mess up a sequel to Black Flag? And it originally started as an expansion for Black Flag, but it's just been like through different variations and stuff. But I mean, I wish them the best, but like I guarantee you, in the modern age, when we're all looking at $70 games and rolling our eyes, that everyone would prefer to buy Assassin's Creed Black Flag 2 as opposed to Skull and Bones, where you can't walk on your ship. Like, like it makes no sense. But we'll move on, because like I want Ubisoft to do well. Again, they have amazing franchises. Just not everything. Like, I put it like this: Far Cry. I love Far Cry, and there's a very particular game mechanic in Far Cry 6 that completely put me off. Completely. I got to the main island, and there's 2 types of main ammo in the game. There's kind for low armor and heavy armor, and that completely broke like immersion for me when it comes to Far Cry games, because I get immersed. I like to go all stealth and stuff, and now you have to think about which ammo to use on different enemies. I just did not like it. I'll try and get back to it this year, but like, just adding more RPG mechanics onto existing games, just stop it. Like, and I love RPGs, but I don't know. I'd be interested in chat. What do other people think about the whole Ubisoft situation? Because I want them to do well. Anyway, we'll move on. We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about the Activision stuff right now, because there's way more interesting stuff. And plus, when it comes to the whole legal stuff, Logan, you know way more than me, because I literally zone out and fall asleep. So Activision, Ubisoft, the deal, I should say Activision, Xbox, the deal's been going on for months, a year now actually. And when this deal was first announced, I actually thought to myself, oh, it's going to be done in a few months. How naive was I, honestly? I wish I knew better. But yeah, it's still going on, and Sony apparently don't want to show up in court to testify. Logan, like, explain because it just gives me a headache.
Yeah, this whole ABK circus has become a sick joke at this point. It's like um it's almost like getting rickrolled. Like you see an article every time. It's like, oh, there's a breaking update, and then you look, and it's just some other outlet posting an update on something that they've already put out there, but they just want more clicks. But every once in a while, there's actually an update, and so we have an actual one now where apparently I don't know how the legal system and courts and stuff work in the UK particularly, but I know over here in the US, like if you have a big corporate case and there is a third party that is involved in the industry or the environment type case that is particular pertinent to your legal defense or tactics, then you can subpoena them and ask for relevant information for your case. So Xbox basically has said that, all right, Sony, you have been doing this, fighting tooth and nail and just clawing and trying to get this thing killed and claiming that you just cannot thrive without this, that this would be the death of PlayStation, all this, that, basically saying this is the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to Sony without Call of Duty and all this other stuff. So basically, Microsoft has called their bluff and has said, look, all right, our lawyers are sending you court papers to serve you. We want documents that pertain to this information you claim is accurate. So basically, they want access to information that will support Sony's claims or support Xbox's claims so that they have a further idea of what they're dealing with. So Xbox can have these numbers and go, okay, this is what Sony has. This isn't really accurate compared to our information, or we hadn't thought of it that way, or see, they have all these exclusive titles lined up or deals, and this proves that they're over exaggerating this or that. So it's going to be a really big deal whenever this information is available to actually be used. Whether, as also part of the due process, Sony can attempt to quash the subpoena or limit its scope and say, okay, fair enough. You can have our hardware numbers, you can have this schedule of games, or this or that, and try to limit the scope. But, or they can try to get out of it entirely if they feel it is relevant and not necessary information. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. And they filed for an extension. Microsoft agreed. So the 27th is by when we should hear what exactly Microsoft has requested and get the idea of kind of what they're getting. So that's going on. The FTC thing is going on, where they're kind of in wait and see approach with that. The CMA is supposedly supposed to be doing something next week where we will hear their objections and their things they have problems with, and then the EU following up. So this thing is winding down in Europe, but it's also kind of ramping up in the legal sector of the US. So if they get Europe resolved soon, then they should be able to resolve the US soon. If they don't get the Europe stuff resolved, this thing is just going to continue to drag on and drag on and drag on. So, fingers crossed they can work something out with the CMA and the European Union, because if not, this thing could drag into 2024 as far as a legal process, which is just makes you want to pull your hair out because of how long it's been going.
Yeah, if that goes on for another year, I'm gonna have a full head of grey hair. Um, yeah, I don't need that. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all sick of it, but like, it is what it is. We have to talk about it, but like, that's why we're putting it earlier in the show because there's way better topics. But like, I think Sony just really, they don't want it to go public because all their information about them and other games they have, exclusive. Because like, look, there's been a rumor for the past year and a half that the next BioShock is exclusive to PlayStation under the same.
That would suck.
Yeah, like that would be bad, and like I don't think Sony wants that information to go public. It doesn't benefit them in any way, and it just makes Microsoft look like they're getting less games, which would be the truth. But hopefully, things get sorted soon. And here's the thing, it's getting to a point now where I honestly think that it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if it doesn't happen. Like, obviously, they want this to go through because of the whole mobile situation, and obviously Call of Duty would be huge for Microsoft, especially the Game Pass. But, like, when they came out and said that they would be willing to put, Call of Duty on PlayStation Network, or whatever it's called, PlayStation Plus, like, that was, like, a bad move, in my opinion. Like, they shouldn't be giving away too much. If anything, it should be the other way around. Sony should be willing to let the Final Fantasy, 7 remake go multi-platform as a show of good faith that they're willing to work with Microsoft, as Microsoft's willing to work with them. A street that goes both ways, so to speak. I'm just thinking about the whole grey hair thing. I'm really going to go grey by the time this whole thing's over. By the way, let's speak of grey hair for a minute. I was in a pub when I was like 17 at college, and one of my friends leaned over and she said, "Hold still." And she pulled a hair out the side of my head. It was grey. It started then. I don't need it to get worse. All because of video games and Activision. Damn Sony. Anyway, we'll continue. But hey, look, that's it for Activision today. We'll talk about it in the future when there's more interesting stuff. But yeah, speaking of Sony, we have to talk about this because it's kind of been viral for the past few days. And that's also a Square Enix game. And that is Forspoken. Now, I want to put this out there. Like, it's timely exclusive to PlayStation for 2 years, I think. They can keep it.
Like, I have to give a standing ovation to Square Enix for securing a 2-year money bag for that game. Bravo. I mean, wow. What a job you just pulled. Just bravo.
Yeah, before I continue with the Ubisoft thing, we're about 11:30 over here. So if anyone's enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Subscribe. It helps. Super Chat's alive if you want any messages read or whatever. Anyway, so Forspoken. A lot of dialogues came out, and it's pretty cringy. Now, I'll put this out there. One of my favorite games of all time has some of the most cringiest dialogue in the history of video gaming, and that is Final Fantasy X. I adore that game, and its writing is absolutely atrocious. Like, just want to know, Logan, have you played Final Fantasy X?
Oh yes, I am intimately familiar with Final Fantasy X.
Yeah,
amazing story, amazing game, but yeah, the dialogue is oof.
Yeah, like great game, an amazing story. I highly recommend people play it. It's also on Xbox at the minute. It's 4K and all that stuff. But it's cringy. It's very cringy from start to finish. Same with Kingdom Hearts. Like, you can't say Kingdom Hearts without thinking cringe. But they're good games. High on Life. That game is pretty cringy. Although that's meant to be its kind of humor and it works in its favor. But Forspoken, it's very cringy dialogue. Again, like you said, Square secured the 2-year bag from Sony, which that must have cost a lot. And honestly, it looks like a 360 game. I'm not even talking about graphics. Like, it looks like a 360 generation action game. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing, in my opinion. I play 360 games all the time. If you follow me on Twitter, I talk about backwards compatibility non-stop. I love that generation of titles. But it's just a weird game it's like 720p, and it's a PlayStation 5 game, and like the media isn't talking about it that much. They're just talking about the dialogue. But all through the beginning of last generation, Xbox fans had to listen to Resolution Gate, 700p, 800p, 900p. We had to hear it every week. Yet this PlayStation 5 title, the media they're just not talking about. They're talking about the cringe dialogue, and that's pretty it. And like, when it comes to like, by the way, when people say something looks like a 360 game, they don't actually mean graphics. They mean style of game. Like I've played a bunch of action games that are open world, and Forspoken just doesn't look special. There's some cool powers in that game, but the dialogue doesn't help. It looks very formulaic. It looks like a subpar Ubisoft title. Just putting it out there. But hey, people can have fun with it, and just the dialogue's very cringy. I'm surprised that Square Enix got a 2-year deal for this. Like it blows my mind. But hey, if people want it, go get it. It's a $70 game, which again, people all over the place for $70 games at the minute. Logan, do you think you'd be picking it up?
Not for 70 and not for a couple years. I'll play it when it comes to Xbox eventually. I'll give it a chance. Like, I have a feeling that not all the dialogue is like what we've been seeing, but what we've been seeing has been quite awful. Like, surely it can't be Sacred 3 where all the dialogue is that way. But, I mean, if it is, then maybe it'd be worth a few laughs for $20 or something like that. But, I don't know. I'll give it a chance down the road, but not right now.
Yeah, I won't say it's the worst video game dialogue I've heard. If anyone ever wants to see the worst video game dialogue, go to YouTube and search Mortal Kombat 4 cutscenes. Wow, like that is like the worst dialogue you'll ever hear in any video game, ever. Especially watch Mortal Kombat 4 Kano ending. I won't spoil it for anyone, but it's magical. It's so bad. But yeah, Forspoken. And here's the thing, right? If people want to enjoy that game, that's awesome. Like, look at High on Life. It rated about the same on Metacritic. I loved that game. It's one of my favorite games of last year. And honestly, depending on what kind of humor you like, the dialogue could be considered extremely cringy. There's a lot of people that don't like that Rick and Morty style humor. So if that doesn't land well for you, it's going to be just as cringe. One was a game that was an indie title that launched on Game Pass, and the other is a $70 game made by Square Enix with one of the biggest marketing machines in the world behind it. So, yeah. Trying to think of other games that have weird, cringy dialogue. I'm just looking at my shelf. Prince of Persia, The Forgotten Sands, has some extremely cringy dialogue. Yeah, I mean, I think people should just look past it. If you like open world action games, you'll probably like it. But yeah, 2-year marketing deal. Oof. But yeah, go Sony, whatever. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, Logan, you mentioned this. And Xbox toxicity. And I was wondering what you meant when you said that. And there's this media person, some people may have said, I won't name them. They obviously had the gold check mark on Twitter. And they said that the Xbox community is the most toxic gaming community on the planet. Now, if you've been following me for a few years on Twitter, you know for a fact that's not right, because like the crap I've gotten on Twitter is kind of disgusting over years. I don't really talk about it much, but if you've been following me for longer than 3 years, you've seen it. It was bad. The Xbox community is very nice, in my opinion. Like people talk about multi-platform games, indie titles, random games they play. It's more of a community. And I'm not saying the PlayStation community isn't a community, by the way. Like, there's some really good people that prefer PlayStation, but like when it comes to toxic, like fanboys, you just have to open up Twitter and type Xbox, and it's just a bunch of negative stuff. And I don't know, Logan, what do you think of that? Because it's such a weird thing.
Yeah, I thought it was really unfair to paint an entire community as, just the most just definitive toxic, community out there, and then just, especially when you're writing pieces that, and comments and other things that paint the brand itself in a really bad light, which in itself is, just interesting. So it just felt unfair, and then it felt like it was just trying to stoke some flames and rile people up. And I feel like when people put this stuff out there and then they try to retreat and play the victim card about this kind of stuff when they're, they start this and then people react and then they're like, well, see, prove my point. And I'm like, no, you proved your own point by doing this and this. And I don't know. It's just a bad look and it's weird. And I frankly don't know why certain groups, certain outlets, certain things have standings with companies and others don't, and how even some of the more negative and harsh ones still somehow get leaks and other things to them from employees when they constantly um, badmouth and belittle that company. That kind of just blows my mind. Kind of like how they ended up with a copy of the Phil Spencer internal email right after all this just happened, which just kind of caught my attention a little bit. I'm like, isn't that kind of odd? But I don't know. It seems weird the people that get access to things and the people who don't.
Yeah, I mean, you do have these like media personalities that kind of go out of the way to try and stir things, because like, look, uh, like PlayStation, it's clear that they have a huge fan base. So technically, since they have a bigger fan base, they obviously have more fanboys. That's literally just how it works. And I think the reason why a lot of them are so toxic is the 360 generation. I think that because over here in the UK, like the PlayStation 3 sold less than half of the 360. The price in the UK was ridiculous. It was a joke. They had to knock down the price a few hundred, and then it became a default Blu-ray player. And I think just like Xbox fans for about the first 3 or 4 years of last generation, they had to grow like a thick skin. Because no matter if you talked about Xbox Online or preferred Xbox, even people that worked at like gaming media outlets, if you had an Xbox centric profile page, they would automatically talk down to you and all that stuff. Like I don't even have the word Xbox wrote in my Twitter profile, and I get talked down all the time by media personalities. And it's just because I prefer Xbox. You have a lot of people in the gaming media that grew up with PlayStation. They are in their late 20s, 30s, and literally when the PlayStation came out, that was their default system as a kid, and they just grew up with it. And then there's people like me who I grew up with PlayStation. Like I had a PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PS3, PSP, but when the original Xbox came out, I just I love the controller, I love the ecosystem, I love the games, and I kind of just preferred Xbox. And then when the 360 came out, like that was my machine. And I just think it's weird to throw the Xbox community under the bus like that when you just have to open Twitter to see it's the opposite. And that not so saying the PlayStation fan base is like all like that. Like there's really cool people. Like I'm friends in real life with people that only play PlayStation. And there's no hate there, like literally nothing like that. And there's people online that will get angry just because you prefer a different plastic box, which blows my mind. It was a weird thing to say, but yeah, we'll move on. I just didn't like that. It was very distasteful. Like it was blatantly obvious. And here's the thing, right? There's these kind of tweets people post online that will generate attention. That being one of them. We've seen this past week, me or PS5. I think people have seen that where it's
oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, by the way, this wasn't a topic. That's been really bad this past week. And it's a way to farm likes.
Yeah, I've been seeing that, me or the Xbox too. It's just like, why?
Yeah. Like the me or console, I've seen people do it with graphics cards. And it's a really quick way to farm likes. That's literally it. And it's usually people that have around 100, maybe less, 1,000 followers, because in the end of the day they get more attention. And like if you have like 100,000 plus followers on Twitter, chances are you getting brand deals, and that is very good to have those like high amount of likes. But it's honestly boring, and they're boring people for doing it. Like like if your entire personality to get likes online is me on PS5 and it's a picture of them, licking a controller, like nobody cares. Like, what does that even mean? You're not going to get a console, and you're definitely not going to get the influencer. So it's like it's a stupid post, and it's just a way to farm likes, and doing the whole negative post about certain communities that also generates likes. That's all it is. That's all you see on Twitter these days, by the way. People posting negativity and bait to farm likes, which is whatever, People do it on Instagram every day, and they get paid for it. Anyway, we'll move on, because enough negativity for today. Age of Empires 2. Now, I've been an RTS fan, I'd say, for about 20 years-ish. Back in the day, in the early 2000s, for school, my parents got me and my brother a PC, and, for school, and just to make sure it was, like, reliable, they bought the most expensive PC in the store. Bear in mind, we weren't rich by any means, but they saved up and bought us this really expensive PC at the time, and it would play, I'm not even kidding, literally any game at the time at 60 frames. Any game. And it was amazing. So this PC that was bought for school was mainly played with video games. But at the time, there was this, this store in the UK called PC World. They also sell, video games and console stuff. There was a huge selection of Star Trek games. Now, as a Star Trek gamer, or as a Star Trek fan, there's not many video games on console for Star Trek. And basically, I played any sci-fi RTS I could get my hands on. Homeworld 1 and 2, Star Wars Empire at War, Star Trek Armada 1 and 2, and I no-lifed those games. Anyway, as the years were going on, we got some RTS games on the 360. And that was the generation when I kind of stopped playing PC games. But on the 360, we got the Command and Conquer titles. We got Halo Wars, Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2, which is phenomenal, by the way. I'm still hoping we get a remaster or backwards compatibility for that. So anyway, during the Xbox One generation, we got next to none. We got Halo Wars 2 and some indie titles, and that's it. Age of Empires finally has its comeback after like 20 plus years on PC. RTS fans around the world were happy, and there was this small rumour that it would come to Xbox eventually. And we get the trailer a few months ago, and basically this month we're getting Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and later in the year we're getting Age of Empires 4. Good stuff. Well, today we got the launch trailer, and it looks really good. It has the radial menu you have from Halo Wars. That's basically a good way to control RTS games on console. You have a radial wheel, get to your actions quickly. But we also have a bunch of other games coming to Xbox. So I know 1800, which is a city builder RTS game, and it looks amazing. It's coming to Xbox this year. I think it's actually coming to Xbox in March. You can pre-order it now, and it looks phenomenal. The graphics are amazing. We're also getting Company of Heroes 3 in a few months, which they've completely retuned the controller support and all that stuff, so there's not going to be any issues. You can also play these games with keyboard and mouse, and it's just good to see this sort of rejuvenation in PC-like titles on console. And that goes beyond RTS games. We're getting things like Valheim is coming to Xbox. That was absolutely massive on PC last year. Logan, what do you think? Because with the launch trailer today and it looking like a really good port, all these RTS and PC centric games are finally coming to Xbox.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for it. I've always wanted to play Age of Empires on console, and I'm glad we're finally getting the second one remastered. And 4 will eventually be coming, and it has all this content, and it's been modernized for controllers, and also you can do key and mouse if you prefer. So it looks like the definitive experience. Fingers crossed the ABK deal is done. They bring StarCraft and other RTS franchises as well, and we'll be eating good, but RTS has been underserved on console, so it's about time we finally got some.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, consoles were basically just console games. But if you look when the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 came out, we started to get MMOs. Neverwinter Nights, came to consoles. Nobody expected it. Star Trek Online came to consoles. Elder Scrolls Online, and a bunch of other different MMOs. And like there is a fan base for these style of games. You can even buy simulators for everything. There's a fire truck simulator. There's a police simulator. Although whatever about that game, but like train, like train sim, flight sim. I think there's an audience for these titles, and you could look at them and think, oh, it's a bit of a weird game or whatever, a bit niche. But who cares about niche? Like, isn't it cool to have like a bit of variety? Like, I don't want to play first person or third person games all the time. Give me something different. Which means, with RTS games being more of a thing on console, I'm going to continue to port beg Homeworld 3 until it releases. I don't care. Here's the thing, I know that wouldn't work on a controller because I played 1 and 2. Just saying. But I'm going to port beg regardless. I want it. Yeah, hell, you can even play The Sims on Xbox with a keyboard and mouse now. Although you do actually need a keyboard and mouse to play that properly. But yeah, cool stuff. And yeah, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition launches later this month. Which, again, it looks really cool. You're going to be getting the best experience. But yeah, looks really good. Anyway, we'll move on. I wasn't going to talk about this, but might as well anyway. So, Mac Walters, one of the heads of BioWare, is leaving after 19 years. And that's kind of a big deal. Like, one of the big heads from behind, the Mass Effect trilogy, and he was really behind Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which I rarely talk about on Twitter. And it's sad to say, but I have noticed there's a bunch of writers and developers from BioWare that are going to their own studios, or making their own studios, that are blatantly going to come out with games that are kind of like Mass Effect. So you have Casey Hudson's new studio, which they meant to be making a third-person, multi-platform RPG set with a sci-fi setting. Just want to put it out there. Mac Walters done a lot of good for Mass Effect, and considering I'm going to talk about Mass Effect till like the end of time, just thought I'd mention it. Although the good thing is that the lead writer for Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be working on Mass Effect 4. So that is literally the best news for that game. Hacky Sack wrote in chat, I think it's the end of the old BioWare era. Yeah, it's kind of been that way for a while. But the good news is that a lot of the recent hires, like, with Guardians of the Galaxy lead writer and stuff, there are people working on the game at the minute that they know what they're doing. And plus, given how popular Legendary Edition was, like, we just need more games like that. Mass Effect doesn't need to be open world. Like, look at Mass Effect 2, a bit of a tangent. People call Mass Effect 1 an open world game because there's these big square maps on planets. But Mass Effect 2 and 3 are just as long. Even longer, really. They have more missions. It's just the limitations of the hardware at the time and like the development kit of the early Xbox 360, like they couldn't really do the missions they wanted. So that's why you have these bland square maps in Mass Effect with an A building in the center. It's because they couldn't really do much else. Hell, look, here's a little thing for Mass Effect fans that don't really know this. The engine was so new, Unreal Engine 3, that in Mass Effect, the first game, you'll never hear two characters talk at the same time because it would break the engine. So, little Mass Effect fact for people out there. I could talk about Mass Effect all day. Anyway, Logan, what's your thought about like the old guard leaving BioWare altogether?
It's a bummer. BioWare used to be point blank my favorite studio. They made, Knights of the Old Republic, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, just list goes on and on. They just made incredible stories and worlds and characters that just drew you in, and you just fell in love with these universes. And then EA didn't change everything. That would be unfair to say they completely changed everything, but once they joined them and started doing some different stuff, things kind of shifted. Thankfully, EA has kind of taken a step back on their regards to how they manage them, and then BioWare's rebounding, and other studios are given freedom to do what they want now. Shout outs Jedi Fallen Order. Thank you for changing EA's mind. Thank you. And just it's a bummer, but this goes to that whole idea that, oh, the gaming industry is getting consolidated or monopolized, this or this. I'm like, you see great renowned people from studios leave all the time to create their own new studios. There will always, as long as there's talented devs out there will always be new studios popping up. Like, the gaming industry is like booming right now. Like, it's just every other day some new studio from well-known names is popping up somewhere, and a lot of times it's someplace you'd never expect, or they're working with a new genre, and it's a shame, but I'm interested to see what they make. And it reminds me on kind of a related topic that a well-known Blizzard um, manager is now out for after being there for a long time because of some stacking policy for promotion and stuff. So just talk about changing of the guard for well-regarded RPG studios. It's a bummer, but it seems to be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I am hoping the best for BioWare because I want good Mass Effect games, and I think we will. Legendary Edition proves that they there's a fan base wanting more of that, and plus they move into Unreal Engine 5, and they have a lot of new developers that have a lot of experience with Unreal Engine. And the story writers is basically the most important part. So I think they'll get it together. It's just if people are expecting like everyone to return for a new Mass Effect game, I don't think that's going to happen. But who knows? That this might be for the better. Hacky Sack wrote in chat, Jamie do a deep dive on Mass Effect. I do actually have Mass Effect content coming, including a review of Legendary Edition. And you might be thinking, why would I put out a review after a year and a half or something? And the reason is I actually did the review for Mass Effect Legendary Edition a year ago. I just never put it out. I thought, who's going to watch a review for a game that released 6 months ago? And here I am a year and a half later. I think I'm just going to put it out regardless. I need to do some fine tuning, but I do have Mass Effect related content coming out this year, which I love making Mass Effect stuff. And yeah, cool stuff coming if you like Mass Effect. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so Square Enix. This isn't going to be the typical rant I normally do. 13K in chat asking, what about Mass Effect Andromeda? I've gave my opinion on Andromeda before, and if people enjoy it, that is really cool. I hope people have fun with it. Yeah, that I'm just gonna go on a bit of a rant. Mass Effect Andromeda, I hyped like no one else. I was like the hype train on Twitter at the time for that game, posting screenshots, clips, videos, all sorts. If a new trailer came out, I made a video about it. I made videos, like I had documents about that game on all these features that were cut and didn't make it. That was literally about 20 pages long. And I made content on it all the time. And when the game came out, the game lured you into this like false sense of security. It actually started a lot like Mass Effect 1 and 2. And about 4 hours in, it changes into this sort of formulaic open world game with repetitive content. And, I finished the game and I never went back to it. And that told me everything I thought about the game. And bear in mind, I talk about Mass Effect all the time on Twitter. All the time. You'll never see me talk about Andromeda, and there's two reasons. Because I didn't actually like it. And the second thing is, I don't want to upset people that enjoyed it. If people enjoyed it, that is awesome. I'll just put that out there. That's the last I'll talk about that. Hopefully Dragon Age gets the Legendary Edition treatment, because, we still have ways before we see Dragon Age 4 release. Although we will be seeing that game this year. But yeah, I hope we see Dragon Age get the same love as Mass Effect, because there's a fan base waiting there. Anyway, so Square Enix, they're useless. They are the worst publisher in my opinion. And every time I say that on Twitter, people get angry. like as an Xbox fan, don't I really have the right to say that at this point? Because I'm not getting any of the newer titles unless it's like these one-off things. I get Crisis Core, but not the Pixel Collection. Really? In what universe does that make sense? Anyway, but you have Sega, right? And a lot of Xbox fans love Sega. A lot of people came from the Dreamcast. A lot of people just have this nostalgia for Sega, and a lot of people just like their franchises. Well, Yakuza, a few years ago, they were announced that they were going to put a bunch of titles in Game Pass, and they kind of created this new fan base for Yakuza on Xbox. And then by the time the Xbox Series X and S launched, there was an existing fan base for Yakuza on the console. So they came out with Like a Dragon as a launch title, and it sold really well. And there's an active fan base for Yakuza now. So they launched Judgment, then Lost Judgment. There's a bunch of new titles coming. I think they announced 3 new like Yakuza games, although it's called Like a Dragon now as a franchise. But they all come to Xbox. And basically, about a year ago, we get the announcement that Persona is coming to Xbox. Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 5 Royal. We have them all on Xbox now, and they're all in Xbox Game Pass. And now there's an active fan base of Persona. And there's been rumours over the past few weeks, and bear in mind, all these Persona rumours we've had in the past have turned out to be true, that there's 2 games coming. There's a Persona 3 remake, complete remake, and Persona 6. And there's this huge speculation at the minute are they going to be multi-platform titles, or are they exclusive to PlayStation for a timed period? And honestly, after Sega's business dealings and how much they've seen, Yakuza grow as a franchise, I honestly don't think that they'll actually be exclusive to PlayStation. There's money to be had in Xbox gamers buying these games now. I'll put it like this. A while ago, I asked someone, this is an actual conversation I had in real life, would Final Fantasy VII Remake sell more on PlayStation or on PlayStation and Xbox? And this person literally said, just PlayStation. Blew my mind. Like, how anyone would ever think that is amazing. But yeah, I think these games will be multi-platform because there's a fan base now. Why would you get gamers hyped for more games in the future possibly? It just seems like a weird move. So with Yakuza was once an exclusive franchise to PlayStation. Now it's not, and new titles are coming. Logan, what do you think? Because the rumors look like they're going to be true, and they're going to be announcing stuff this year.
Yeah, to me it would seem like you take a big step forward and then you take a big step back if they were to finally bring Persona to Xbox. See, it's marketed like crazy from Xbox. You see billboards all over the place, adverts on buses, Twitter stuff. Like the whole Xbox community is thriving and happy about Persona on the platform. Yakuza's done well. They launch a new title on as a launch title for Series X. It does really good. They announce sequels and new content, and it seems like all systems go. Engine light green. Everything's great. To me, it would be a massive disservice and a financial just short minded decision to all of a sudden yank it out and just go, all right, well, now you've gotten a taste of it, but now you don't get it back for a while. Just stew on that for a while, and then we'll bring it to you again eventually. But we want you to have a taste of it, but you can't have too much. To me, it would be nonsensical to do that. Of course, it wouldn't shock me at all if Sony wants to try to money hat that thing. In fact, I would expect them to try to do that. That's what they do. So, to me, it would make less sense for it to be timed than it would be just to be fully multi-plat. But knowing how these companies operate, I won't be shocked if it is timed. But I think it's more likely now, especially after the success and the hype of all the Personas and Yakuza games, that it will be multi-plat fully going forward.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. we have a new Yakuza game. Well, it's a remake. Like a Dragon Edition is coming to Xbox next month, and that game looks phenomenal. So like there is money to be had. Like I know people like to run with the whole like Xbox gamers don't buy games because of Game Pass, but the truth is like we were buying games before Game Pass was a thing, and people still have reason to buy games. Like if you like for me, for instance, I save money because I'm subscribed to Game Pass, so that money goes on games that don't launch in Game Pass. And I think there's a lot of people in the same boat. And Persona, there's an active fan base in the Xbox community now. Like I see a lot of people talking about Persona. And speaking of Persona, we have Persona 4 Golden and 3 Portable now. And I've been playing Persona 4 Golden, and I have to say, I bloody love it. That game is incredible. It's a very, simplistic RPG, very simplistic combat, but I actually appreciate that. And just the art style, it's got a very, it's got a charm to it. I like it. I nearly bought a Vita for this back in the day. Thankfully, I didn't, because now I'm playing it at what looks to be 4K 60 FPS. And I don't know, like, Logan, have you played it at all?
I haven't played it on Xbox yet. I had a Vita back in the day, and I got it for that. I didn't haven't played it fully though, and I want to experience it, in depth on Xbox first. So that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, as far as the whole Xbox people don't, buy games because they hate Game Pass or whatever. Like I have, Persona 5 Royal Steelbook Xbox sitting on my shelf. Like I bought it to support it and because I like it, and also to show like, hey, we do want these franchises to come to Xbox. Bring them here and we will support them. Like to me, it's the antithesis of Square. It's like Square will throw you one every once in a while, and it will be some odd sequenced game that makes no sense for you to get that one first. And then if people don't fully support it, then they won't bring other ones. But then if you fully support it, they still may not bring other ones because it failed to meet expectations. It's just another difference between how Square runs and how Sega runs. Sega's got it going on, and they have it together.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always going to see a lot more love for Sega than Square Enix. If Kingdom Hearts is not going to Xbox, that's going to make a lot of people angry. Like, that will be a bad day on Twitter. I'll just put it like that. But yeah, it's cool to see, Persona having a fan base on Xbox now. Again, I'm having fun with Persona 4. It's great. You're in a school, you're doing all these quests and stuff. And plus, it's a lot simpler than Persona 5. I only got about 10 hours in 5, and I'm going to get back to that after 4. But yeah, I think 4 is a good jumping in point. Very simplistic combat. It's very basic, but in a good way. Like, I mean that in the best way possible. In fact, I've been wanting that for a JRPG for a while. Just give me some simple combat that's relatively... Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm playing Persona 4 on easy, just because I want to be able to finish the thing. I find JRPGs have these really big difficulty spikes, and that always annoys me. Like, I remember back in the day with Final Fantasy 13, I should say Final Fantasy 10, where you have to fight a boss on one side of a ship, and then you have to fight the same boss, or similar boss, again afterwards without a checkpoint. And I remember nearly pulling my hair out as a kid. Like, that driven me insane. And ever since, I'm like, just give me easier JRPGs. Like, I play most games, like first-person shooters, third-person shooters on hard and stuff. I'll admit, JRPGs, if I can put that on easy, damn right I will. Just because, like, it takes me forever to finish games. But yeah, Persona 4 Golden, having lots of fun with it. I highly recommend people download it. It's got a native next-gen Xbox version, which is really cool, all that stuff. It's also a pretty small file. I think it's only like 10 gigabytes. But yeah, really cool game. We'll move on to, Hogwarts Legacy we'll talk about quick because, again, we talked about last week how it's, I'm doing air quotes, controversial because of, the creator of the IP that actually has nothing to do with the game. It's number 1 on PlayStation on Amazon US and number 2 on Xbox in the US on Amazon and number 1 on Steam. And honestly, like, we don't really get a lot of games in that RPG setting. Like, if this has been a thing I've ranted about before, right? We don't get a lot of sci-fi RPGs, and a lot of fantasy RPGs are very much similar. This is a Magic School RPG, and it's going to be huge because during the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation, we had 0 Harry Potter games, except the Lego remaster. That's it. And during the 360 generation, we got movie tie-in games, which weren't that good in my opinion. The last good Harry Potter game was Chamber of Secrets on the original Xbox. 99% of Harry Potter fans that play games will say the exact same thing. It was also on PlayStation, GameCube, and PC. And this looks like it's going to be damn good. It's like 74 gigabytes on Xbox. You can actually pre-install it now. And yeah, if you pay for the digital deluxe version, other than some skins you get to play it 3 days early. Which for a single player RPG, I'm actually surprised. But we're going to see this with more games. So Redfall is rumored to have the same thing. I don't really have a problem with developers wanting to get a little bit more money to play it early. To be honest, I never really fall for it. I probably will with Hogwarts. Plus, it's content I can make. But yeah, Logan, do you think you'll be picking it up straight away or waiting?
That one's gonna be one I wait for a while, but I do want to pick that up. And like you said, there are so many fantasy RPGs. I mean, there's a reason they're popular. They lots of lore, mechanics, yada yada yada. But I am glad to see some diversification of RPGs. Like, I do want more sci-fi ones for sure. But yeah, this is like the first real big Magic School, like fully immersed game. Like, even aside from Harry Potter background and lore, like, even if you just called this like I don't know, like, just throw out some just magic-y sounding name, school of wizardry or witches or whatever, it would still be like, man, this looks awesome. So me, I'm looking forward to it. It won't be day one for me or day zero, like getting it, the pre-order to where I can get it early, but it's one I will pick up.
Yeah, and plus, this is the studio's like first AAA game. In the past, they've made mobile titles and movie tie-in games. So, like, this is a bit of a change, and honestly, from everything I've seen so far, it looks amazing. Like, people, like, whenever I've posted GIFs, some people say it looks like a Red Dead Redemption 2 mod, because it looks so good. But a lot of studios have that breakout title. Like, remember Rocksteady? They were making smaller titles, and then they came out with Batman Arkham Asylum, and that put them in pretty much, like, one of the best developers there is. So, this is going to be their breakout title. And bear in mind, this is not the Avalanche that make Just Cause and Rage. That's a different Avalanche. I don't like the names are too similar, so someone has to change something. But yeah, good for them. It's unfortunate it's surrounded in controversy. But yeah, I hope the developer's the best because there's hundreds of good developers over there. And who knows, if this game takes off, maybe we'll see a Quidditch expansion. That's what I'm hoping for. I really want Quidditch at some point. like,
To me, it seems like a no-brainer they'd put Quidditch in there. I mean, like, for a casual Harry Potter person, like, Quidditch is one of the first things you would think of with Harry Potter, so not having that in the game kind of seems like a big omission to me.
yeah, I mean, there's two things that I think that game needs, which I think they could add it down the line in an expansion, is Wizard's Chess and Quidditch. It just seems like a no-brainer. And here's the thing, I think Warner Brothers, they are very weird when it comes to season passes. They don't really announce stuff in advance. Like, we don't know if it's going to have, like, expansions at all. I think they're just going to wait and see how good it's going to do. And honestly, I think that's going to be one of the best-selling games of 2023. Like, I think it's going to be up there with Starfield and, Spider-Man. Like, that's going to be, like, it might actually end up being the best-selling game of the year. Because Call of Duty isn't getting a new release this year. It's getting an expansion, apparently. So, watch this space. Hogwarts Legacy might actually outsell everything, and that wouldn't surprise me, given the hype around this game. But yeah, anyway, we'll move on. we're just over an hour into the show. If you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Super chats are all live if you want to do all that stuff. So, Dead Space, the remake, launches on Friday, and everything they've shown so far looks amazing. And it's EA coming out with a single player game, and it looks good. And everything they've shown so far looks amazing, and they've even included like new stuff. So basically, there's no load screens throughout the Ishimura. It's not separated into different chapters where you can't go back anymore. You can ride the train and go to previous chapters to get collectibles. And they've also put like mini quests in. Like, so basically, the first game was originally about 12 hours long. Well, obviously, with a brand new AAA release, they're not wanting to do the same thing again. So even though the game is kind of one-to-one, there's also side missions, and you can also explore the ship more. There's 360 degrees zero-G movement, which Dead Space 2 has. And they've put it in this, because in the first game, you could do this like Superman jump in zero-G. It was terrible. But again, it looks good. There's even this thing called the Scare Director, where basically, if you play Dead Space when it released in 2008, you could be walking down a corridor, and no matter how many times you play it, the same, we'll call it alien zombie thing, necromorphs, they would burst through the same panel every time. So you kind of know what's happening. Well, they've made it dynamic in this game, so no matter how many different playthroughs you have, an alien thing might pop through a different grate at a different time, or may not pop through at all, which is really cool, because for replayability, that is excellent for a horror game. So while you do have, Resident Evil 4 this year, that's like going to be doing some next-gen stuff as well, but like, and plus, this is a next-gen only game, and it looks the part as well. Like, Logan, do you think you'll be picking this up because it launches on Friday?
Oh, absolutely. I've already pre-ordered digital deluxe everything. I am 100% day one on this. Dead Space is one of my favorite horror franchises, sci-fi franchises. I so hope that buzz about a film actually being in development is true. It just it looks incredible what they've done. Like, Dead Space has aged well, honestly. Like, the 360 version looks really good. The trilogy on Series X with enhancements and everything. And this one just, it blows it out of the water, and it just looks incredible. Having Isaac's actor come back and actually voice him for the first game now, and adds a lot more depth to it. When it was frankly, like, I've considered it a masterclass game to begin with. So the fact that they're already adding depth and improvements to a game that was already incredible is just so exciting. Adding the kind of the grav components that they had in Dead Space 2 for maneuverability, the AI updates for spawning of enemies, some more story enhancements and explanations and lore stuff, the voice acting, it looks phenomenal. And this is a game that I think is an example of how to do a remaster of a beloved game right. We've given EA a ton of junk over the years for all kinds of tomfoolery they've done. But this right here is like picture perfect how you should do it. Play it by the book. Just perfection. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, the way they're releasing it, it looks really good. And I think, when it comes to the hours that you can put into it, like, let's look at the Callisto Protocol. I really need to finish that game, but like, people looked at that game and thought $70 for 12 hours. And honestly, I think the price hurt that game. Excuse me. I think the price hurt that game because, like, people don't want to spend that much on 12-hour games. And then you have this like Dead Space remake where like it's going to be longer than 12 hours because of like the side missions, the fact that you can go back to multiple different chapters or whatever, and the zero G stuff. And by the way, I think a bit of a tangent. I think the reason why the Callisto Protocol didn't do that well, other than price, is that the style of horror. So you could play Dead Space for maybe like an hour, and you have this like intense feeling that something's going to happen, and then eventually the game will throw one enemy at you, and the build up was suspense, and that was you waiting for an enemy to pop out of a grate, a wall, an elevator shaft, whatever. But in the Callisto Protocol, they will throw like 5 or 6 enemies at you all the time. You are always fighting enemies in the Callisto Protocol, and I honestly think that hurt the game because there's less suspense. You're just thinking, how much ammo have I got for the next 5 aliens? And it just happened. Like, did you play the game, Logan?
I haven't started Callisto yet. I have the deluxe and like the season pass and everything. I was waiting for all the updates. It seems like now is a good time to jump in after they had the latest update a few days ago. But it's definitely one I want to play. But I think I will play the remake of Dead Space first before I jump into Callisto.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I highly recommend people do that because, like, as a Dead Space fan, I went into the Callisto Protocol thinking I'm going to get more Dead Space, and like, excuse me, and I think to an extent, like, it's a beautiful game. Like, honestly, it's probably one of the best graphically intensive games to date. But the problem is that the gameplay is kind of slow, and the fact again, it just throws enemies at you constantly. And I just did not like that. And I think a lot of people had a problem with that. There's some bosses in that game that will just destroy you in one hit. The difficulty is ridiculous. And it's not just the amount of enemies, the situation it puts you in. So it's like they took things that worked in Dead Space, made it more difficult, and gave you like a clunky melee move. I don't know. And the thing is, they can fix it with updates and stuff. But yeah, they expected to sell, or I should say, needed to sell 5 million copies when they've been able to barely scratch 2. And I honestly think the price and the fact that they just strayed away from too much Dead Space. If that was literally just another Dead Space game with a different name, I honestly think it would have sold well. But $70 for a 12-hour game, that's just a bit much. I think it'll get another boost of sales when it goes on sale, but yeah. But yeah, Dead Space, it's looking really good, and it releases this Friday. It has a 60 FPS mode. I think it's 1440p on Xbox Series X at 60 FPS, and it'll also have a 4K 30 mode with full ray tracing, which is really cool. I'll have to play on both, but it's good to have options in a game like that. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, Gears. Now, the Gears collection rumor has been flying around for a few years now, and I've said in the past that they've already done Ultimate Edition. Funny thing about Ultimate Edition is that people seem really confused about what that game is. Like, it actually has in common with a remake. Like, they remade all assets in that game, everything, 100%. They redirected cutscenes, so it's new cutscenes made with the new assets in different camera angles, and the cutscenes are actually longer because there's like slow motion and stuff. And by definition, that game is actually a remake. Like, it's irrefutable. It's a remake that uses the same dialogue. That's it. That's literally it. Much like, The Last of Us, that uses all the same voice acting, but they use new assets. The only difference is Gears launched at $40, and it had multiplayer and also the PC chapter from back in the day. That's a topic for another day. But I've always wondered, like, that first game sold well. It's beloved. Wouldn't it make sense to do the whole collection, the whole trilogy, or maybe include Judgment as a collection? Because I think a lot of people would like to go back to Gears 2 and Gears 3 and play that multiplayer, and the Horde from those games would be really popular. And I've always thought, like, Microsoft, like, they've said they want to get one big game out every quarter, and with all the studios they have now, when everything's calmed down a bit, like, I honestly think they will do that. We will get a AAA game every single quarter from Xbox Game Studios. But wouldn't it be cool, the fact that they have teams making smaller titles, but also have remasters and remakes come out? Because there are studios that literally only make remakes and, remasters. And I think it's very likely. Do I think this will be announced on tomorrow? No. I think it could be an E3 related thing, because it just seems like with them wanting to ramp up the Gears TV show, and or was it a movie? It keeps changing, but like just stuff like that.
There's both.
Oh right, okay. See, I thought it changed, but like, if I swear they need to get Batista as Marcus Phoenix. I don't care for what if it's a series or the film. I want Batista as Marcus Phoenix. I will not have it any other way. But yeah, I think they're gonna announce it at E3. Like it just makes too much sense. You release a game alongside it, it'll sell. I'd be interested if people in chat want to actually like have Gears 2 and 3 to have the ultimate edition treatment. Like Logan, do you think it's gonna happen? Because there seems to be a lot of talk about it.
To me, it seems like a surefire way to print some easy money and breed some more goodwill with the fan base. We have the BC enhanced options, but if you want, a little bit of a juiced up package that has, Unreal Engine 5 and, you know, new animations or maybe some modernized mechanics or new features, bring in maybe some long lost content or something, that would be awesome. To me, that like if they gave it the Gears Ultimate treatment for 2 and 3, and yes, I do like Judgment. I know I'm in the minority, but I actually really did like Judgment. If they had put that in there too, then yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. No, a guy from Coalition the other day said it was fake news or whatever about the um photo going around and this and that. But I mean, what do you expect them to say? So who knows about that? I do think it should be a thing. Whether it is or not, I don't know. But if it is a thing, I definitely don't expect it tomorrow. I would expect it at E3 or a later date. And yeah, I just want some more Gears, man. Like Gears 5 ended on a cliffhanger. I'm curious how they're going to resolve that, which ending they will choose canonically. And yeah, I want some more Gears, and I want that franchise to thrive, especially as some of their other flagship franchises have kind of hit some rough waters right now.
Yeah, I mean, like Gears 2, like I might talk about Mass Effect every 5 seconds, but like Gears of War 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I've played through that campaign more than 12 times from start to finish. I adore that campaign. And I when that game first came out, I played the campaign in one sitting. I was obsessed with it. I loved that game. And yeah, it needs that treatment. Plus, I want to saw through that giant worm at 4K 60 FPS with modern textures. Make it
Yes.
like with what Unreal Engine can do now, even Unreal Engine 4, like Gears 2, in my opinion, would be bloody amazing. And like you were saying, Judgment. If you play Judgment, it's probably the best looking 360 title. Like I'm to this day, I'm still surprised that Microsoft didn't hold that off and have it as an Xbox One launch title. Like they should have just waited a few months, in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully it happens. And again, if it does happen, it will probably be E3. And you know why? Before we get into the heavy topics, I'm going to throw something in that I don't know Logan might have seen. So, Tango, Microsoft's Japanese studio, they are making a bunch of other stuff. Their new game leaks. Did you see this, Logan?
Yes, Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
It as a supposedly, it's been described as having a jet set radio kind of aesthetic, and it's a shooter of some sort. Some folks say it has some rhythm based stuff, and others haven't mentioned that. But from the artwork I've seen that's been floating around, it looks interesting, and I like Tango, so I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, so there's no actual like news whether we have a first super chat of today by Nick W. Have you tried Persona 4 Golden or Persona 3 Portable yet? And if you have, what are your thoughts? Well, earlier in the show I was talking about Persona 4 Golden. I think Persona 4 Golden is absolutely amazing. I'm only a few hours in, and it's it's probably one of the best games I've played in a while when it comes to JRPGs. I've put 5 off for a while, for a bit, just so I can get through 4, and I've always wanted to play 4. Incredible game so far, and I love the aesthetic. Like it's very colorful, bright, even though it has some like darker storylines. It's just a very good game so far, and plus it doesn't seem overly difficult, which is my problem with some JRPGs, I'll admit, where I just want to be able to play it at an easier difficulty. It has some quality of life improvements where I can save more often than other JRPGs. I will get to 3 eventually, but it's mainly Persona 4 Golden. I've been wanting to play Persona 4 Golden for like 10 years, and it is incredible. I can't wait to get back to it tomorrow. And honestly, so far, like at the end of this year, I will do it like my favorite games of 2023, and it wouldn't surprise me if that game is actually on that list, because so far I'm just having such a blast with it. Its storyline, it's just good. It's good. And thanks again, Nick W, for the $4.99 super chat. Yeah, so Hi-Fi Rush. Now, this isn't meant to be Tango's next big game. Microsoft has a bunch of different studios working on, multiple different titles. So we have Obsidian. They are making Avowed, another title, The Outer Worlds 2, and Pentiment. And Pentiment, very small game. People love it. And I think that, I think it's cool that these studios can work on multiple different projects. Hacky Sack with the $2. Thank you very much. Hi-Fi Rush with Sunset Overdrive vibes. Honestly, a little bit. Like, it's just concept art we've seen so far. It looked like it could possibly, and I'm just guessing, Sunset Overdrive-ish gameplay, but with like Logan. When you saw the concept art, did it look like the original Tron to you?
Yeah, it kind of did a little bit. Kind of like these futuristic, almost prison jumpsuit looking clothing, and then like the hairstyles and like the colors and everything. Yeah, it kind of does have that vibe to it.
Yeah, and this is just like a few pieces of concept art. Excuse me. It looked very like late 70s, early 80s sci-fi inspired, and it looked like it was 1v1 multiplayer. But again, this is going to be and again, thanks for the $2, Hacky Sack. This is going to be one of their smaller titles, so they are working on something big. But honestly, I think it's really cool that they can come out with multiple different titles. I think it helps. Although I will say this, there's a bit of a danger when it comes to small multiplayer games, because Bleeding Edge was a smaller multiplayer game, and it had about a year of support, and I don't know if people play that still. There is a danger with small multiplayer projects that if it doesn't take off massive, like a Fall Guys or Among Us, that will it retain a player base that will last? That is the only problem with small multiplayer games. But with that said, it's Tango. I'm sure they have some cool ideas, and I'm all up for it. And plus, I've been wanting to get back into some multiplayer, and outside of COD, I'm willing to try this 1v1 thing. And plus, I think it'll be cool for playing with friends or whatever. But yeah, Hi-Fi Rush could be cool. I don't know if it's going to be announced tomorrow. None of the leaks suggest that, but maybe they'll throw it in there. You never know. Anyway, we'll move on. Screw it. We'll get this out now. So, live service games. There's been a lot over the years, and they've been ranging from all over the place, right? You've had these Destiny-style games with, lots of content that's added over expansions, and they have these multi-year plans, and basically they have this style of content where you come back every day or every week, where you do dailies or weeklies or whatever. And they basically MMO lights. They are co-op games with MMO-style combat and, missions and raids or whatever. So you have The Division and Destiny. And then you have multiplayer games with season passes, or I should say battle passes. And, Jez Corden the other day wrote on Twitter, does he think that, or do we think that live service titles are going away? And I honestly think the industry is going to change massively, because, Avengers, that is ending. Thankfully, you'll still be able to download it. in place. Although you can only purchase it, I believe. I'll post on Twitter if it's different. You can purchase it up until September, and then you'll be able to play the single player and multiplayer like components still for years to come, apparently. But they end in supporting that game, so no more updates from March and no more content. That game was originally planned to have 3 year, like multi-year content, and so far the content they've put out is apparently lackluster. The characters they've put out haven't exactly had the expansions people thought, and it's a bit of a shame. Anthem, like I put it like this: BioWare forgot about Anthem so quick. They left the Christmas lights on in like the hub till March, right? They completely forgot about that game, and I don't think there's a place for those style of games outside of Destiny and outside of the Division. Like, Logan, do you play the Destiny or the Division at all?
Yeah, those aren't my cup of tea at all. So like that boat just never crossed my shores. I've tried a little bit of Destiny here and there or games like it, and it's just like to me like time sync type games like I want something more for my time sync type games than those. Like if it's a huge RPG with like hundreds of hours of like quests and character development and plot and just all this stuff like a Dragon Age Inquisition or something like that or Skyrim, that's one thing. But it just I don't know. I know a lot of people like them, and I'm not shading them, and I'm happy for them, and I'm glad that these games can have success. But it's not for me, and I kind of wish companies would quit trying to force these certain models to the forefront when there is notable resistance in corners of the gaming community.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. Outside of the Division and Destiny, what I'm about to say, I don't think it affects them two games or franchises. I honestly think the age of live service style titles is going to go down. Like go back to the Xbox 360 era when Gears of War popped off. You had all these games come out with forced multiplayer like PvP. Dead Space 2, forced multiplayer PvP. Tomb Raider, forced PvP multiplayer, and it happened in a lot of different games, and they just never retained an audience. And then whenever a follow up game came out, it never got the same multiplayer component. Well, you look at like the modern age where all these developers are coming out with like, oh, we have this 5 year plan, this 10 year plan, and like that's my biggest problem. They're just thinking about the overall plan, and it's like, give me 1 year of content. That just work on the first year content and then work on the next year. And I honestly think, and I haven't seen any other big like creator or big creator say this, right? I honestly believe that battle passes have completely changed how people like think of progression, and I think publishers are making less money because of it. So, for instance, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Halo, you would pay for a map pack every 3 to 4 months, where you would get 3 maps or 4 maps, and it would split the player base. However, they were getting all that money up front, and millions of people would probably buy them. Then Fortnite releases, and everyone starts doing battle passes. And think of a battle pass as a concept. You pay, right? This goes to Battlefield, Call of Duty, Halo, or basically anything with a battle pass. You pay up front for the opportunity to do challenges to unlock cosmetics. And now people relate cosmetic content to progression. Do you know what we used as progression with Call of Duty 10 years ago? A level up number and a card. That was it. Nobody cared about what your character looked like, because when you're playing first person, you only see your hands. So Call of Duty's progression system was a level up tree where it was just numbers and emblems, and that was it. Yes, you would unlock new attachments and weapons, but every 3 to 4 months, they would put out a trailer for a new expansion pack, and you'd get 3 to 4 maps, and you'd play those 3 to 4 maps for another 3 to 4 months, and then you'd buy another map pack, and it would be rinse and repeat, and you would get 1 year of content. That was Battlefield, Call of Duty, Halo. It was the exact same model. Then you have Fortnite come out, where they start doing battle passes, and it's like, oh, you can level up by doing challenges and unlock stuff. And I honestly think with all these developers going, you know what, we're going to give everyone maps for free, which is good, by the way, because, the player base is sticking together. There's no splitting the player base. However, I think there's been a noticeable jump in quality of multiplayer content when it comes to battle passes versus season passes. I've talked about this before, and I seem to be the only person on the planet that realized this. Like, honestly, think about Halo, right? Were we getting better Halo content when we were paying for map packs?
I'm 100% in the same camp as you, man. We've had this discussion on here, and I completely agree. I like not to have big boomer energy or sound like some old, like shake fist at the sky. Like, why aren't things the way they used to be? But like back in the 360 and Xbox, even early Xbox One generation, like Halos and all these things, they would have, you'd buy a map pack for, $9.99 to 15 maybe, somewhere in that price range, and you'd get at least 3 high quality maps and some extra content and stuff. And it would be like, man, this is awesome. I love these maps. And you'd have to wait a while, but you would know you were getting them and they'd be good and worth it. And you would get a cadence of content every so often. You pay for it. Yes, there's always but splitting the community base. But I mean, there's lots of that in gaming to where, like you get what you pay for. If you want more, you pay for it generally, unless they're doing these battle passes to where you pay and you get some rabbit ears and a smiley face on your gun and a little dancing emote or something like that for like $20. Just it's crazy to me how Fortnite has completely changed the game on how all this happens. And I think to be blunt, I feel like it kind of dumbed down a lot of gaming stuff. And it's sad to see. Like, I don't think that's the biggest problem Halo has right now. The Battle Pass, I think it's annoying, but it is what it is. But in the shop is overpriced for a lot of stuff. But to me, Halo's biggest problem, if you want to even get into that, is just the failure to deliver on expectations. And when you say you're going to do something, you bloody do it. You don't say you're going to give something and then you pull the rug and say, well, psych, we've actually canceled this, or we're not going to do it, or, oh, we're going to launch a game like this, and then a year later, you get like one map, maybe two, and they're like for certain modes, and that's it. There's new leadership. I have faith in new leadership, and I really, really want Halo to survive and do really well. They said they're committed to it, but I just want it to succeed, and I think honestly, going back would be a smart move for Halo going forward, unless they're just married to this Battle Pass thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, when I bring up the whole map pack thing, I completely get when people step back and think I don't want to pay for content, but like, let's look at. I'll just use Call of Duty as an example. When Call of Duty, you were paying for map packs. I was paying for the map packs. Do you know how much money I've paid towards microtransactions in COD, including battle passes? £0. So they used to receive multiple amounts of money from me a year via map packs, and now they get zero. So you've got to wonder how many people think like me and do the exact same thing with Halo and Battlefield. Like, people talk about Halo's content. Like, Battlefield is barren when it comes to content. And that's the same deal. Battle passes. It's like, there's a notable shift in the content we have. And you're on about, a promised content. Like, I honestly think developers should stop saying, hey, this is a 10-year game. This is going to be supported for 10 years, blah, 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 blah. Like, concentrate on 1 year. get that content out. And like Halo Infinite, by the way, I love the campaign. I love the gameplay, but it's crystal clear people want more content and they want promised features such as ray tracing. Although I don't know if it got ray tracing or not. And like map packs and like split screen co-op and all that stuff. And by the way, split screen co-op works in Halo. People have worked it out. You have to mess about with some settings, but like that can work. And as someone that plays, like who's gotten back into Call of Duty after a decade, it's crystal clear how people perceive cosmetics as progression, and like even Call of Duty's content has been pushed back a month. Like that stuff never happened. Like remember 10 years ago, we were getting trailers for map packs, and now people just talk about battle passes. If anything, there's one game I've played where I think a battle pass makes sense, and that's Fall Guys. The leveling up in that game, it's just a number, and every time you rank up, you get a new piece of something. It might be a player card or a cosmetic piece, and you unlock the premium stuff when you get the battle pass. So at the minute you can get like SpongeBob SquarePants and all that stuff. In my opinion, it's £10, and I'd say it's worth it. I think sometimes you can get it for £8 in the UK, but I think it makes sense. Fall Guys has probably the perfect battle pass system, but Fall Guys is free, and I think it earns its money. But you have Halo, Call of Duty, Battlefield. The second we switch from map packs, all hell breaks loose. And I don't know, like I used to like getting 3 or 4 maps every 3 months. And now we're in this era where people want new content all the time. And it's like the competition is more fierce than ever. You have the free-to-play games such as Warzone, which is, Call of Duty. You have Apex, Fortnite, PUBG, these colossal free-to-play games which are trying to get your attention. And then you have these paid multiplayer experiences such as Battlefield and Call of Duty where, look, let's face it, none of the big Twitch streamers or YouTube streamers like Dr. Disrespect, Vicstar123, all that stuff, they never play Call of Duty multiplayer. They don't. They stick to battle royales. And what do people talk about? Battle passes. And I don't know, it's like, do I want to blame Fortnite for everything? I could, but, I don't know, it's just a weird time. Like, Game Pass is successful. Could they include some, like, map packs in that? I don't know. Like, I think there has to be a change because all these live service games, such as like the Destiny clones are all failing. Traditional multiplayer isn't getting as much content as people need, and it just seems like everything is a step back as to what they were 10 years ago. And you were saying you don't want to sound like a boomer. I will. I'll sound like a boomer. I miss 10 years ago, right? I miss paying for map packs and getting content regularly. I miss when, like, leveling up used to be a number. That was it. A number, maybe an emblem, and a guitar riff when you level up. That was the excitement for leveling up, by the way, in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. A guitar riff. And now people are like, okay, I've got all the Battle Pass content, now I've got nothing else to do. That's the problem, in my opinion. People are playing to get cosmetics, but where we used to play is to just play and enjoy these multiplayer games. Nobody ever talks about what the Call of Duty character looked like. Nobody cares. And now people care. I'm not going to go off into a tangent about, battle royales and stuff, but it's crystal clear that something needs to change. And I honestly think that the day and age of the Destiny clones, so, your Anthems, your Avengers, they're not going to happen anymore. You have Ubisoft taking a step back and a second look at what they make, and you have EA making single player content. Square Enix is doing NFTs for some reason, and I just think there's going to be a shift in the next 2-3 years where all these publishers are going to focus more on single player / co-op stuff. Like, look at Focus Entertainment, right? They are probably going to be one of the best third-party publishers this generation, and if you look at all their games, single player. They don't give a crap about multiplayer. They don't. They concentrate on single player. Even the higher-ups at THQ Nordic, they've said that they don't really care about multiplayer. They might dabble in co-op, but they don't care. And I think that's going to be evident by the end of this generation, where all these games don't have forced PvP or Destiny style stuff anymore. I don't know. Logan, do you think there's going to be a bit of a shift from the whole Destiny clone thing?
Yeah, I really do, especially as some of these games have just gotten so bloated with stuff and content to where it's just kind of overwhelming. I do think it will tone down, and like most gaming things, there are some fads, and then there are some things that actually stay true and hold on for enduring time. And I think these will fade eventually, and I think they're starting to.
Yeah, I'm just being hopeful. like, notice there's always this excitement when something's announced as like, oh, they're gonna do single player stuff. Like EA are concentrating on single player. When they announced Iron Man, the first thing they said was single player. They didn't mention action adventure. They just said single player, and that's what people want. And I think we're going to see more of that. And before we get into the final topic, if you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. All that stuff. Everyone in chat's been awesome today. And yeah, so Starfield. It's been years in the making. People cannot wait to play this game. It's a brand new AAA single player RPG by Bethesda, and people know what they're going to get with that game. It's a Bethesda RPG. So if you like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, you're going to love that game. However, since the game was shown off last year, the media, gaming media, is absolutely obsessed with comparing it with No Man's Sky. Now, as someone that's played No Man's Sky, I have no idea what they're talking about. And this is my whole problem with the game is like doing this generalization thing. Like like Bethesda do single player RPGs. This is clearly Fallout, clearly Elder Scrolls, but with, planets you can explore. But like game spots and all that stuff, they keep saying No Man's Sky. Or it's like No Man's Sky, but you can't manually land on a planet, and you can't fly from like one solar system to the next manually. And I think it's just dumb. For instance, as someone that used to play Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky, do you know what there is to do in between solar systems? It would be the same in real life. Nothing. There's nothing there. It's called dead space. That's literally what it's called. There's nothing there. It's like, why would you want to fly there? It doesn't make any sense. And the comparisons with No Man's Sky is like a very negative thing, because people still have some bitter taste in their mouth about No Man's Sky, even all these years later. And by the way, No Man's Sky right now is a fantastic game. They've fixed it. There's more content than what they originally promised, and it's a solid title. I think it's actually still in Game Pass as well. And it's like, it's a Bethesda RPG with space combat, but they keep bringing up No Man's Sky. It annoys me because it's non-sci-fi fans going, "Oh, space game." It's No Man's Sky. It's like when Avatar came out in 2009, and people saw these blue aliens and said they like Smurfs because they blue. They narrowed it down to its most like stupid thing. I don't know, Logan. What do you think? Because like, I think it's stupid, the comparisons, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like comparisons end with you're in space, you wear suits, you have helmets, and you explore. Like that's where the comparisons end. It's completely different type games, studios, expertise, aesthetic, experience, mechanics, yada yada yada. It's a lazy comparison, and it's it's like the people who always just like Star Wars and Star Trek. Like they're very different. They both have sci-fi in them, but they're vastly different experiences, tropes, worlds, characters, setup, etc. It's like just because it's in space doesn't mean they're the same at all. And it's I don't know. I think it's lazy take. No Man's Sky is amazing compared to what it was when it launched, and it is in Game Pass, I believe. So definitely recommend it. And I'm excited for Starfield. It's one of my most hyped games for sure. Have been waiting since with bated breath since it was announced all those years ago. And even if it is just Skyrim or Fallout in space, which is that sounds amazing to me. If they put more stuff in it and flesh it out even more, and incredible, you're looking at one of the best games of all time. Like it's just it's not fair to compare a Bethesda title with a title from a indie studio that had went for a completely different type experience. It's not fair to either game, and frankly, it makes no sense. They're both in space, and you both explore. That's where comparisons end.
Yeah, I mean, as someone that like I really pay attention to all these upcoming sci-fi games specifically, and like, do you know what Starfield is actually closest to? The single player component from Star Citizen. Like that game is meant to have multiplayer with interactions with other ships and stuff, but the single player component is going to be like one solar system or something, and with quests and all that stuff. And it's like Starfield is doing what is going to do what Star Citizen has been promising for a decade. And by the way, that game still doesn't have a proper roadmap. It got all of its funding like 10 years ago. It's made like 400 million in donations and stuff. But like, Starfield is going to be given that experience. The No Man's Sky comparison doesn't really make much sense, you know. So if anyone's wondering what I'm talking about, just Google search or YouTube search Star Citizen single player, and it's literally this is what Starfield is, and we're getting it this year, and it's an exciting time because outside of the Mass Effect trilogy, we haven't really had a sci-fi RPG like this ever. Like, people could talk about Andromeda, but I think I've made it clear my opinion of that. But it's exciting because we get fantasy RPGs constantly. Constantly. Go on Xbox Live right now, or PlayStation Live Network or whatever, and you just find this abundance of just fantasy games. Nothing wrong with fantasy, by the way, but like, where's my sci-fi? Because do you know how many sci-fi AAA RPGs we've had in the past decade? We've had, well, Mass Effect Andromeda. Say about that what you will. We've had Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, and Cyberpunk. Right, but if I would ask you how many fantasy AAA RPGs have there been, you could probably name about 40. And I'm just sick and tired of like waiting for more sci-fi stuff. Thankfully, Starfield's coming this year, and we have the Outer Worlds coming, and I don't know, just like you're saying, it's lazy saying it's like No Man's Sky. Stop it. No. And the thing is, the other day I made a comment on Twitter about how like relating it to No Man's Sky doesn't make any sense. I had these randoms pop up saying Corp. It's like, in what universe does a Bethesda RPG have anything in common with No Man's Sky? Can you build ships in No Man's Sky? Honestly, at this point, I don't know, but No Man's Sky is it's kind of like a roguelite open universe game where that's the point. But in Starfield, it's an RPG. It's a space opera, right? It's meant to be about exploration, these deep stories with these interesting characters. If you've played like Elder Scrolls or Fallout, you know what you're getting into. And I just think it's weird doing these comparisons all the time, and it doesn't help anyone. And if anything, it just shows that the people making these articles have no idea what they're talking about, because they're nothing like No Man's Sky. And if people don't believe me, go on Xbox Live or whatever right now, download No Man's Sky and play it. That isn't what you're getting with Starfield. It's just not. We talk about lazy like stuff all the time, but like, shouldn't these people that make these articles be doing a better job conveying what a game is? Because like, it's one of the most anticipated games ever. It's one of these games that was rumored for years before it was announced, and then it was announced with a CGI trailer, and then eventually we got a reveal. Do you know what other title had that exact same lead up? Elden Ring. We had rumors about Elden Ring for 2 years before it was announced. We had a CGI trailer, and then about a year or so later, we had a gameplay trailer. The game releases, and what do you know? The game lived up to the hype. Do you know how often that happens, where a massively most anticipated game lives up to all of its hype? It's rare. but it happened, and Starfield has the exact same lead up to it. Now, will it be as good as Elden Ring? Who knows? But people weren't bashing Elden Ring before it came out the way they are with Starfield. People didn't look at that and go, "Oh, it's just Dark Souls." Elden Ring is more than Dark Souls. It really is, and I just think it's just lazy, like you were saying. Anyway, I just think people need to get. Oh yeah, we finally have the bots in chat. We almost made an entire show. But yeah, Logan, have you got anything else to say on the topic before we close?
No, just that there was some breaking news while we were on air that we had talked about it beforehand, but Squanch Games, who has done High on Life, they have officially parted ways with Justin Roiland, their creator. But the studio is going to continue to make games and support and improve High on Life and try to do other stuff. So that was something some people had speculated about because earlier today Adult Swim cut ties with him as well. So people are like, okay, so what's that gonna have to do with Squanch Games? Are they screwed? What's gonna happen with them? They had, the most successful, biggest debut game on Game Pass. A lot of people enjoyed it and were hoping for more stuff from it. So it sounds like the plan, at least for now, is for them to keep going and trying to do some stuff just while separating themselves from Founder.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mentioned earlier in the show, I loved High on Life, and I like that style of humor. But like, obviously, they can't work with him anymore. Um, but the studio can still do their own thing. And I've played their past two games on Xbox. Trover Saves the Universe and then High on Life. They can clearly make good games and polished games. Like, I didn't have a single bug, by the way, playing High on Life, not one. So like I hope the studio are the best, and plus they can get new voice actors and stuff. They're doing the same with Rick and Morty, like you were saying. Very awkward situation, especially like you were saying. It was the most successful Game Pass launch. Like, millions of people played that because of Game Pass, and that was an indie title. Like, a lot of people don't really realize that. They look at the graphics and think, oh, it's obviously a smaller AAA game. No, it's an indie title, and yeah. Honestly, now that the creators out of the way, and I honestly think Microsoft should work with Squanch Games in the future. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be an exclusive. They can just work on like Game Pass stuff or funding or whatever. But Squanch Games can clearly make good titles, and I think Microsoft should work with them. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, I agree. I know a lot of people would love to see what they could do with Conker. Like, if there's a studio out there who could handle Conker and his humor and his mannerisms and the whole South Park kind of tropes, it would be them, Obsidian, Double Fine, studios like that. And Double Fine has made it clear they only want to do their own stuff, so that takes them out. And then Obsidian's hands are pretty full right now, so I mean, me, they seem like a perfect fit for doing a game like that or continuing to make new stuff. Like, people liked High on Life, they resonated with it, and I just I hope this opens the door and keeps it going forward for positive momentum, and that they can put this stuff behind them and be a fruitful partnership between Xbox and them. Now that some things are out of the way.
Yeah, and plus the story kind of ends on a cliffhanger if you do the secret ending. So I definitely want a High on Life 2 as soon as possible. And plus, I love the way the game looks. Like, the graphics look really cool. The guns literally look like they're made of flesh, which is really weird, but it works. But yeah, hopefully we see more games from that studio. But yeah, that's it for today's show. Everyone in chat has been amazing. Other than the few bots. Logan, have you got anything interesting coming up?
Not at the moment, but keep a lookout.
Yeah, so we'll be back the same time next week. And also, I put out a video, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where it's 20 biggest games coming to Xbox Series X and S this year. Took a lot of time to make that, so that'll also be in the description down below. And I have another video coming out possibly Saturday. Going to try and get it done as quick as possible. But I'll put it like this: if you like Game Pass titles, you may want to pay attention to it. Anyway, everyone in chat's been awesome. We'll be back next week. We are out. Peace.